all the details. You were at practice view those days. What was the energy like out there? Is there a fresh vibe? Are people excited to be back out playing football?
I think it's a couple things. So definitely it's just that carryover from off-season workout programs. This team is feeling good. They're feeling healthy. They're feeling energetic about the work that's in front of them. And then also too, as we talk about minicamp, it was 2 days and definitely kind of last day of school vibes, because after this, of course, the team is going on a 40-ish day break. They'll come back for training camp, but they're going to have some time off. Obviously, they'll still all be working out individually. I think that's like something really all of the players do, but it's just a break away from the facility and that structure. Everybody gets their mind right, and then really kind of the season unofficially starts with training camp.
Yeah, exactly. We heard from a few people during mandatory minicamp. The first two that come to mind when I'm talking about this next point are veteran Trent Williams and head coach Kyle Shanahan. They talked about the difference in tone from this offseason to last offseason. They're two completely different offseasons. Last year, it was the shortest you could possibly get. This year, it's the longest you could possibly get. Jesus, what did they have to say about the difference between the two?
Yes, that's definitely very positive. That's what they were mentioning, like Trent Williams. So obviously, they had a longer off season, so we even get to see Trent Williams at this time of the year, right? At OTAs and obviously in minicamp. So yeah, they mentioned that about the longer off season, which I think is something positive, because almost all the players that so far have been in press conferences. The coaches have mentioned the longer offseason and say it has something positive, because they all been itching to get back to the practice field.
Exactly. And Trent also said this is the first mandatory minicamp he's been at in about 10 years. But he said, every offseason is different. What's it like? What stood out to you the most in those 2 days of practices, seeing Trent, Bosa, and Christian McCaffrey out on the field?
I think specifically with Trent Williams, obviously he is one of the more senior veteran players. He's in his mid-30s, but he always gets questions of like, are you going to keep playing? When do you see the end? And I see him, and the whole rest of the team sees him. He's energized. He's high spirits, good vibes. He's looking in shape, as head coach Kyle Shanahan said. So I'm like, why don't we just let him play?
Exactly.
He's looking good. And I do think one thing that stood out to me that he said is that youthful energy that has come from the new faces, the free agents, the 11-person draft class that the 49ers have. It's infused that excitement and energy that maybe you lose a little bit of that when you're, in year 15, 16 in the league. So, I think all of that it just leads to the good energy. Obviously with McCaffrey, just healthy this offseason, which is something, he battled through injuries in 2024. And then Bosa, looking like himself. And I don't think you would expect anything different.
Exactly. We also got to see more of the rookies. Lindsay, I want to know, what are your early impressions of this class? Who's injured? Who's out on the field? What's the state of the 2025 rookie class looking like?
Yeah, so not to sound any alarms, I think especially with minicamp being short, the guys were not in pads. Just a couple, I think nicks and bruises, really just not things you need to worry about. But Michael Williams had, I believe, a tight hamstring, so definitely a reduced workload. You saw him doing some individual drills, but really pretty minimal for him. And then also Marquise Siegel, I don't think he's expected to be really practicing with the team until training camp. Other than that, there's some other injuries that we can go over. But for the rookie class so far, looking good. I think Jordan Watkins has been an early standout for a lot of people, just looking really comfortable and explosive early on. Obviously, again, this is a non-contact practice, but I think just early flashes are good to see.
Yeah, Jesus, Trent Williams said that this class has some steals. Who do you think stands out to you? Who flashes out on the field?
Well, Robert Sala said on Wednesday, right, on his press conference, it's very hard to evaluate right now because they obviously don't have the pads on. But what we're looking at so far, I really like what I have seen from Jordan Watkins, the rookie wide receiver. I think he looks really good. He's been catching most of the passes he had a chance to get. Also, he looks really fast. Remember, that was one of his main attributes when the 49ers drafted him. So I really like what I've seen from him. And then on the defensive line, side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball, I like also a lot what I've seen from guys like CJ West. Like his hands are like really strong. So yeah, I'm looking forward to training camp when they get the pads on to be able to see those skills better.
Yeah, speaking of the defensive side of the ball, we've got some big news in the Bay. The 49ers have acquired defensive lineman Bryce Huff from the Philadelphia Eagles in exchange for a mid-round pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. Lindsay, when you first heard this news, what did you think for our D-line?
I think just more additions to the D-line is that was what the 49ers were looking to do this offseason. I think a very good get. You have to call back to that pre-existing relationship between Robert Saleh when he was at the Jets and Bryce Huff. Only spent one year with the Eagles. Previously, had spent 4 seasons with the Jets. Had a 10-sack season in 2023. Hard to ignore that double-digit sack number. And really, I think there's just that pre-existing relationship, a lot of faith in the work and effort that he's going to bring to the Bay. And I think one of the things that Robert Saleh highlighted is that Bryce Huff, he says, has the most explosive get off the ball stat, that we like to talk about here at the Niners. So just an early highlight for him.
Yeah, Jesus, how does he fit into our D-line? How is Robert Saleh going to use him and scheme him up this year?
Oh, I think he fits perfectly to the 49ers scheme because obviously he was with Robert Saleh with the Jets. But also, I think defensive line, Chris Kucerek is playing it really well. Remember, like about a week ago, more than a week ago, we had the chance to speak to the different coaches, right? Like defensive line coach, wide receiver coach. And Chris Kucerek was mentioning that with the 49ers, he fits perfectly because he's been used to his whole career to play with his hand on the ground. He's not a stand-up linebacker like in Philadelphia. Mostly that's what he did, right? They play a different scheme, but with the 49ers, he's going to be with his hand on the ground most of the time. So that fits perfectly to his skill set.
Yeah, Jesus, you've covered the team for a while now. Shanahan and a lot of the coaching staff says that Bryce Huff reminds them sort of like a D Ford. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, definitely, because even Kyle Shanahan went into detail, right? He mentioned that on Tuesday in his press conference that he's like the best get off the ball guy that they had since D4. So that caught my attention because obviously I remember when they had D4 back in 2019 and they went to that Super Bowl in Miami. It was amazing, right? So much speed coming off the edge, and then also Chris Kucerek mentioned the same thing. He didn't compare it to D4, but he said he spoke about his get off ability. I even talked to him about that, and yeah, he said he loves his speed. And then also even Trent Williams. Trent Williams wasn't with the team during that 2019 season, but he said during his press conference they asked him about Bryce Huff, and he said. He compared like to D4 in a way. He remember when they had D4 and the Niners went to that Super Bowl in that 2019 season. So in a way, I think they're trying to replicate like what they had back then on that defensive line. Obviously, Bosa is the only remaining piece from that year, from 2019. But in a way, I see obviously Bryce Huff like kind of like your D4 guy. Then Michael Williams, remember he can play outside or he can play inside. And obviously you have Alfred Collins, you have CJ West. So some of those two guys that play on the interior, they could be like your DeForest Buckner or your Arik Armstead. So in a way, I think that they're trying to replicate what they had back in 2019 with that defensive line.
Yeah, Bryce Huff mentioned that he watched a lot of D Ford tape back in his time with the Jets, so it'll be interesting to see how that will materialize and how he'll add his own flavor. Definitely another amazing weapon to the D line. But Lindsay, we've also got a new look to our special teams. There's sort of a reset during this offseason. Could you share what those details look like for the faithful?
Yeah, so we have a new long snapper and new punter, and they were brought in alongside Greg Joseph, who is a new kicker for the 49ers, as well as Jake Moody, who is now in his third season with the team. So a completely new operation. During minicamp, basically the way the workload was split up is Jake Moody took the first day of kicks, and then Greg Joseph took day 2. I think right now it's just the acclimation period, right? Thomas Morstead, who is the new punter, came in and fairly recently, so it really is just getting to know each other, making sure that you're in tune, because as we know, a kicking operation, it really does take all equal parts. So yeah, I think it's getting to know each other. Obviously, that relationship will continue to develop in training camp, but it's something that the Niners, really need to see develop over the course of the summer.
Yeah, they've also got a new special teams coordinator in Brent Boyer. Jesus, how do you think that he'll put his fingerprint on the special teams, and what should fans expect from him?
I think a lot of great things, because definitely Brand Boyer is one of the, in my opinion, one of the better special teams coordinator in the NFL. And when we had a chance to talk to him, I think it was before OTA started. Like he talked to the media, and he was saying some the things like really interesting. Like he mentioned that his philosophy is to obviously make his guys love playing special teams, like because a lot of them can make a career out of playing special teams in the league. For example, the guys have really good special teams before even Brown Boyer got to the team, like George Odom. In the past, we had Raheem Mostert, who for the most part was a special teams guy. Then he found a way to become a very solid running back in the league. So yeah, he was speaking about that passion that you need to have to play a special team. So I think we're gonna see a lot of energy, a lot of passion on that unit.
Awesome. Yeah, we've covered the defense. We got a new look at our special teams unit. Let's talk a little on offense. Some of the biggest stories from this offseason was Brock Purdy getting his contract extension. We got to see him move around on the field now after that contract extension. How is Purdy building with the new receivers? How does he look out on the field now?
I mean, I think he looks like he hasn't skipped a beat, right? For him, this is now second fully healthy offseason, no injuries to come back from, so that's an ideal situation. And I think there has to be some sort of security, like, mentality that comes from, like, yeah, I'm going to be here. This is my team. I'm here to stay for the next 5 seasons. So, I think that energy is very much there, but I think that you would have gotten that with Brock Purdy regardless of the contract situation. I think obviously having that in place is a great thing. But I think we've gotten some conflicting reports on whether Brock Purdy is more vocal or not. Kyle Shanahan said he's the same Brock, but then we hear George Kittle saying that he's speaking up and having more of a voice. I think it's probably somewhere in the middle, but I did like what Kyle Shanahan said last week, that there are no new expectations of Brock Purdy because he is trying to be the best at his position at all times. And the way he leads this team, like we've seen it works. So that extension is just, they want more of the Brock Purdy they've had. And that Brock Purdy continues to build every offseason. And I do think some benefits that he said that Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing went to train with him in Jacksonville. So obviously there's chemistry building there. He had great things to say about the rookie Jordan Watkins, and also really good things to say about Demarcus Robinson, who's coming this offseason as a free agent from the Rams. Just having his veteran presence there in that wide receiver room has been a good addition.
Jesus, pads or no pads, getting loud, not getting loud. Have you seen signs of leadership with Brock Purdy as he enters another season with the 49ers?
Oh yeah, definitely, because I think leadership is one of the natural traits that Brock Purdy has, and that's something that you either have it or you don't. And since his rookie year, I think he showed that. And even guys like Trent Williams, I remember that year, his rookie year, when he played, when he came in for Jimmy Garoppolo in that game where Jimmy got injured against the Dolphins. And after that game, when the Niners end up beating the Dolphins, I remember the media had a chance to speak to Trent Williams, and he was saying, "Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, he immediately took command of the huddle, and for a rookie, that's really impressive. So immediately he gained the respect of guys like Trent Williams, like George Kittle. So that's very amazing. And right now, even with more experience, like Lindsay was saying, that I remember, yeah, Kittle had a very good quote. He said, yeah, I think he's very vocal this year. Even on a route during the OTAs, where I think George Kittle was explaining that Jawan stopped running or something like that, and then Brock Purdy was like, "Hey, Jawan, keep running." So yeah, he's like a natural leader.
Now that we are closing the chapter on minicamp, Lindsay, how confident are you feeling in this roster heading into training camp?
I think more than anything, there is going to be good competition at training camp, and I think that's what you need, right? The 49ers were able to fill the gaps that they needed, bring in some new energy via the draft, free agency, most recently a trade. I think all the pieces are in place to have a very competitive training camp, and I think that's what this team really has been setting itself up for all offseason. So now it's just about getting away, keeping your body in shape, and then coming back and getting to work. So I think they've set themselves up very well.
Yeah, the players were itching to get back on the field, and our fans are itching to get to see them in action in training camp. Jesus, who are some players that fans should, be really pleasantly surprised to see at training camp? Who might pop during camp?
Well, out of the guys we drafted, I mentioned obviously CJ West and Jordan Watkins that look really good. I'll add maybe Upton Stout too. But also with the undrafted guys, remember the 49ers, somehow they always find an undrafted player to take a bigger role on the team, like Jordan Mason in the past, Kendrick Bourne. There's a Cecil Shire. So I think this year it could be Sebastian Valdez. He looks really strong hands, and I think he could surprise a lot of people as one of the undrafted guys. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I will go with another undrafted guy, Corey Kiner. I think Bobby Turner. Even when he spoke to the media, I asked him about Corey Kiner, and he said, "Yeah, he's tough. He runs violent." So yeah, I think Corey Kiner on offense and Sebastian Valdez out of the undrafted guys, because I already mentioned the guys some of the guys we drafted that could surprise a lot of people.
Awesome. Well, with minicamp also coming to a close, Lindsay, there's going to be a few changes before heading into training camp. Would you like to share any updates on your side?
Of course, yes. So this is going to be my final First and 10 podcast because I am headed back home to LA. So I just wanted to say it has been a pleasure being on this podcast. Bree and I started this back, I think, in November of 2022. So thank you so much for tuning in for the better part of almost 3 seasons. It's been awesome, and I'm leaving you in very good hands.
Lindsay, me and Jesus are going to miss you so much. The faithful fan base is going to miss you so much. We are so excited to cheer you on in the next chapter. Jesus.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to miss you definitely a lot, Lindsay. I mean, we really appreciate all you do, and you're definitely we're going to miss you a lot. I don't want to hear, I hate to say like goodbye and
It's not a goodbye.
Not goodbye.
It's not a goodbye. It's just you. I plan on coming back to at least be a fan of one game. So,
or maybe even another guest on a First and 10 podcast.
Maybe a special guest. You never know.
We'll definitely need to call you up and pick your brain on your expertise. But Lindsay, thank you so much.